The Harris County grand jury has decided no criminal charges to be filed against Travis Scott in a deadly Astroworld tragedy that left 10 people dead back in 2021. Let's listen into this here on Live Now from Fox.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joined here today by Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg, as well as our lead homicide investigators, Joshua Caden and Michael Barrow, to discuss the end of our criminal investigation and the grand jury's decision into the Astroworld tragedy on November 5th, 2021. Also, we have Lieutenant Hope from Homicide Division, ADAs, Allison Harvey, and Mike Levine. Also want to thank Major Kyle Matheson for being here with us. Thank you for your support. We also have Commander Hector Garcia to offer translation in Spanish a little bit later. Last week we concluded our extensive criminal investigation. It was presented to the Harris County District Attorney's Office and by the grand jury. I'm sorry, it was presented to the Harris County grand jury by the District Attorney's Office. Remember, and my condolences goes out to the 10 victims and their families. We just ask that everybody please keep them in prayer. I also want to thank our homicide team of investigators who worked so extremely hard investigating this case. Again, I want to thank DPS and also FBI who couldn't stand with us today for their portions in helping the investigation. The district attorney will provide details on the grand jury process and decisions, and then our homicide investigators will follow to give an overview of the investigation. We ask that all questions are held until the end. Thank you. DA?
Thank you, Chief Finner. I want to begin by offering my condolences and that of every member of my staff at the Harris County District Attorney's Office to the 10 families of the individuals who were killed at the Travis Scott Astroworld concert. I'm Kim Ogg. I'm the Harris County District Attorney, and I'm Harris County's top law enforcement officials. Today, a Harris County grand jury no-billed Brent Silverstein, John Junell, Shauna Boardman, Emily Ockenden, Seth Boardman, and Jock Webster II, a.k.a. Travis Scott, on all criminal charges related to the deaths of 10 spectators of his concert, of the Travis Scott Astroworld concert, 2 of whom were under the age of 15, and the majority of whom were young adults. The grand jury presentation by our prosecutors this week is a culmination of 19 months of Houston Police Department investigative work with lead officers Joshua Caden and Michael Barrow. And I want to thank these 2 investigators who I've seen since the very beginning, doing nothing but this investigation, working with our prosecutors, tracking down every possible piece of relevant information and evidence as part of their investigation. And our prosecutors, I want to thank Alicia Harvey and Michael Levine, along with numerous other lawyers from our office who provided legal support to the investigators to write subpoenas, to offer counsel, to sit with these investigators and review thousands and thousands of hours of digital evidence, review witnesses' statements, review time and chronology reports, everything, so that we could get to the heart of the question. Our jurisdiction as the police chief, as the police department, and me as the district attorney representing our office, our job is narrow. It's to determine if this tragedy, this absolute disastrous, horrific event involved criminal activity by anyone, at the top, to the bottom, or in between. And it's our policy when we have incidents and horrible things like this happen and we aren't clear as to whether a crime has occurred or not because it's unclear from its face. It was a lawful concert. It was a entertainment event where people died. And when that happens, it's our practice at the Harris County DA's office to take these cases before grand juries. And we do that because grand jury review is required in every single felony case in America. It's a constitutional right, which makes it a prosecutorial obligation. We take these cases to the grand jury only after police have concluded their investigation. In this instance, it took months. As these cases are presented to a grand jury, I need you to understand that in Texas, our grand juries aren't the product of some special selection process. They are now selected at random. Why is this relevant? Because these grand jurors are your neighbors. They are the residents of Harris County. They are ordinary people, here to do a very serious job, just like the rest of us. Determine whether there's enough evidence to say that a crime happened. Just probable cause, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt, but just did a crime happen? Is there probable cause to believe that a crime happened? In this instance, the grand jury of the 228th District Court of Harris County found that no crime did occur, that no single individual was criminally responsible. In this case, which we handled like we would any other situation of this gravity, it is our prosecutor's job not to go in and get a result that's preconceived by these investigators. The responsibility of determining probable cause by our Constitution is on the people. And that's why this randomly selected grand jury of ordinary Harris County residents is so important for you to understand, because they determined the conclusion and the outcome in this very narrow criminal review. What will happen in courts where they practice civil law, other types of law, administrative law, is not for us to determine. But in our narrow review, our investigators and prosecutors gave it everything they had to ensure that the grand jury could reach the truth of the matter. And that is our job, to find justice even when and in the midst of a terrible tragedy. And in this case, that justice was no bill.
Thank you. Now I'd like to bring up lead investigators Caden and Barrow.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Detective Mike Barrow with the Houston Police Department Homicide Division. And like has already been expressed, our thoughts and prayers have been with the family and the victims that have lost their lives in this tragedy since the very first day we received this case on November 5th. I'd also like to express my gratitude to my partner, Detective Caden. He's a fantastic partner. We've been through a long journey in this 19-month-long investigation, nearly 2 years, of going through a tremendous amount of evidence, hours and hours of video and interviews of witnesses and people who participated in this event. I'd also like to express gratitude to the District Attorney's Office, to our command staff, and to our law enforcement partners that assisted us with this investigation. It's been a long process, and just to explain a little bit more into detail of that, we're going to provide a few insights into that investigation today. First and foremost, it's difficult to condense a nearly two-year investigation into a couple of minutes that we have to spend with you today. But we're going to provide you those details and insights And our focus has been and was for the entire duration of the investigation on those 10 deaths of those individuals. We learned, as you all learned, that those deaths were caused and declared by the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science, death by compression asphyxia, with the manner being ruled an accident. We come before you today with a thorough and complete investigation of these last 2 years of reviewing all those details. So today, without further ado, we're going to show you a few presentations to give you a few of those key facts and insights that we uncovered during this investigation. Please hold your questions till the very end. So, as we went through this, much of our investigation focused on the main stage area. This area, this little cross here, that is where the main stage where Travis Scott, the headliner performer on this stage, performed. We broke up this into sections. We have Quadrant 1, which is General Admission, VIP Quadrant 2, General Admission Quadrant 4, and General Admission Quadrant 3, with a center chute going down the middle and another that crosses over it. Back here we have a media section reserved only for cameramen and people operating camera equipment. And then there's a viewing field and overflow field for all the other concert attendees who were not able to get to the front. There's also a wheelchair access ramp, house where a lot of the media and the sound and the special effects were operated from, and a variety of other areas. Our attention further focused into General Admission Quadrant 3. This is where we determined, after video review of our and witness statements, that all 10 deaths occurred within this quadrant. There you have the square footage of that quadrant and the surrounding areas. But our focus honed in on this quadrant for a variety of reasons. One of the key contributing factors to the deaths was the overpopulation and resulting compaction in this quadrant, or Quadrant 3. Just to be clear, this was not a crowd stampede. This was not a stage rush. This was not a crowd surge. This was a slow compaction or constriction into this quadrant, resulting in collapses within the crowd that covered a very small area in this overall large footprint. One of the key causes for that compaction we've determined was in the early hours prior to the show even beginning. Prior to the Travis Scott show, which was set to go on at 9 o'clock, we have there 9:02 is when he officially started. Prior to that, hours before that, a large gathering of participants and concert goers were already in place at stage 1 in all different quadrants. So it was very loaded, very packed, very anticipated event to see the lead performer. Everyone was already present. Meanwhile, stage 2, down here at the bottom of the screen, at 8:42 hours, SZA was the last show at that concert. This then resulted in the remaining participants in this show to move across this area and over into the viewing area that was already held with people. At which point, this area became even more crowded, leading to further compaction. Now, let me also remind you with a disclaimer. My partner and I, we are not crowd science experts. But during the course of this investigation, we have obtained knowledge and understanding and key terminology that helps us explain and put to words what we were observing through all the footage that we reviewed and all the statements that we received. One of those terms include things like shock waves, which can be defined as areas in the crowd that move involuntarily like waves. And this is an indicator that there are too many people occupying that space. We also use the term often in this investigation, crowd pockets, not to be confused with mosh pits, which is common for this type of performance. A crowd pocket is an area where the crowd has succumbed to pressure, leading to an isolated collapses within the crowd. I'll now demonstrate in a quick video clip what a surge shock wave looks like. This is before the show even began. This is in the General Admittance Quadrant 1. Nobody died in this area, but this is just to demonstrate what was going on in certain areas of the concert. Here we have what we call crowd pockets. You might be able to see, it's kind of hard to distinguish. There are dark circles, and those are not mosh pits. Those are, in fact, areas where crowds have collapsed in on each other. And also note that even mere feet away, concert goers were not able to distinguish what was happening at their feet. These are very isolated pockets throughout the crowd within that General Admittance Quadrant 3. Here's to show you a few vantage points. This is long after the event took place. This is a vantage point from the stage. You'll see here, this is General Admittance Quadrant 3, where the deaths occurred. This is Quadrant 4. Again, a closer up of General Admittance Quadrant 3. Here's the night of the show, perspective from the stage looking out over into that crowd with all the lights and all the smoke and everything going on. This is what perhaps a performer like such as Travis Scott would have seen that evening. Here's the perspective and vantage point if you were on the ground walking into the main chute of the pits in between those general admission quadrants. This is that main chute where medical and the cameramen and officers and security were able to go across. Also very crowded. And again, here's what the perspective would be if you're a concert goer with your head just above the crowd, just looking out over into the sea of people that were at this concert. I'm going to turn the time over to my partner, Detective Caden, to explain this timeline synopsis.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Detective Caden with the Houston Police Department's Homicide Division. Detective Barrow here is my partner. I just wanted to, before I go through this timeline and read it off to everybody, I'd like to thank you for everyone coming here this afternoon. This timeline is just a snapshot of what we have. This timeline is multiple pages long. It could take us a long time to get through everything. So these are some of the key points that we wanted to label. At 2 p.m., the festival officially opens on November 5th, 2021. At 8:42, the Scissors Show ends at Stage 2. At 9:02 p.m., the Travis Scott performance begins at Stage 1. 9:07 p.m., the first 911 call received referencing distress in the crowd. At 9:18, group jumps fence on McNee and command post received reports of injury at that location, which created distractions regarding incident response. At 9:30, HPD receives reports of multiple people entering the medical tent and multiple people passed out at the front of stage. At 9:32, concert attendees climb a camera platform to try to stop the show. At 9:38, HFD initiates an ambulance task force. The first victim is transported to the hospital from the medical tent. 9:39, HPD officially notified of victims receiving CPR and begin the show stop procedure. At 9:47, Set Track declared a mass casualty incident. And at 10:12, the show ends. This concludes our presentation.
It's okay. Take your time. Again, I want to thank y'all for just an outstanding work, and I know it's been tough. I just want to thank and also our ADAs. Thank you. Now that you've just heard a brief overview of the findings, this incident was very complex, involved multiple entities. The offensive report alone was over 1,000 pages. In coming weeks, and in the interest of transparency, HPD will release the entire criminal offense report. That is unprecedented. And why? We want to be transparent. And you can't stand up here in 2 minutes and tell everything that happened. So to the families, first of all and most importantly, but to the public and everybody else, you can read it and see the challenges that everybody faced that night. Since the tragedy, HPD and other partners have taken steps to enhance public safety at future events. NRG Park is a Harris County-owned facility that operates within the city of Houston. Mayor Turner created a special events task force to improve communication and public safety efforts. This resulted in an interlocal agreement that was detailed in a press conference back in November 2022. The agreement was implemented during Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, as well as NCAA Final Four and other events, and all other events moving forward. Now we have mandatory and elevated platform viewing positions. These will be staffed and have been staffed by.
You're just listening into Houston officials there discussing this as charges will not be filed against the rapper Travis Scott. Of course, 10 people lost their life during this Astroworld tragedy. We're going to slide away for some of you for a quick 2-minute break before they take questions from the media.
Or anybody else be able to duplicate calls, and we call it dupe calls. And what that means is if you have something at one location, as additional calls come in and they stack, you put them up under one incident, one case number. No longer. You have to call that out. You can't just dupe it. You got to voice it out. Very importantly, we have equipped all personnel working these events with additional noise reduction communication equipments, headphones that will allow public safety personnel and officials to hear emergency communication better during concerts. We also trained HFD, HPD, and other public safety officials in crowd management training. Before we entertain questions, I want to bring up Commander Garcia to translate in Spanish, and then we'll entertain questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Tenemos presentes al jefe de la policía, Troy Finner, la fiscal del distrito del condado de Harris, Kim Ogg.
You're listening right now as they're discussing this in Spanish there for their Spanish-speaking audience, of course. So I want to give you a little bit more insight of the Astroworld tragedy as the grand jury declines the criminal charges there against rapper Travis Scott. So this was a very, very big deal that we're following here. After nearly 2 years, they have made a decision. The grand jury is that no charges. The district attorney's office reportedly told Scott's lawyers he has not been billed, which means no criminal charges will be filed against him. The Harris County grand jury met on Thursday to decide whether Scott will be prosecuted for the deaths caused in his 2021 Astroworld Festival. According to Scott's attorney, he said, quote, "I just got off the phone with Travis. He's in Europe and he's preparing to go on stage. He's ecstatic and very appreciative of what the grand jury did." In November 2021, 10 victims attending Scott's Astroworld Fest in Houston died from compression asphyxia after a crowd surge that also injured hundreds of other people. Of course, we're following this here on LiveNOW from Fox. Of course, we've also served different civil trials, civil lawsuits, as in 2020, the Busby law firm announced settlement has been reached with the family of one of the victims. Of course, they filed a $750 million lawsuit against Travis Scott, Live Nation, and others who were involved on behalf of that victim, and at least 125 other victims. So the grand jury not moving forward with charges there against the rapper Travis Scott, who is performing currently overseas right now. So we're listening to this here on LiveNOW from Fox. Let's just continue to dive in just a little bit as they make a statement, and then hopefully we'll take some questions from reporters.
Acaban de escuchar una breve descripción general de los hallazgos. Este incidente fue muy complejo involucró varias entidades y el reporte del delito por sí solo contiene más de 1000 páginas. En el espíritu de transparencia, durante las próximas semanas.
Again, still there in Spanish. I want to continue on here on LiveNOW from Fox. As you see, just images and video of that incident, but also helicopter video above from our Fox team there in Houston, Texas. The Texas grand jury declined to indict the rapper in a criminal investigation into a massive crowd surge that killed 10 people in 2021. The lawyer there confirmed the grand jury had met and decided not to indict his client on any criminal charges stemming from the concert. The lawyer said he was not sure what charges the grand jury had considered. From the attorney, he said, quote, he never encouraged people to do anything that resulted in other people being hurt. He also said that it is a, quote, great relief. Houston police federal officials have been investigating whether Scott, concert promoter Live Nation, and others had sufficiently put in place safety measures. The lawyer there for Travis Scott said he feels sympathy for those who were killed at the festival and their families, but, quote, Travis is not responsible. Bringing criminal charges against him will not ease their pain.